Have you ever found yourself dreaming about a getaway? The kind of trip that sounds perfect on paper, a cruise with old friends, a train ride across the mountains, or maybe just a week at a cozy Airbnb near the sea? You picture yourself sipping, coffee with a view, smiling in photos, feeling young again. And for a moment, it lifts your spirit. But then something deeper tugs at you, a quiet hesitation. Maybe it's a worry about energy, or whether you'll sleep well in a new bed. Maybe it's that tiny voice wondering, what if something goes wrong while I'm away? That feeling? It's not fear, it's wisdom speaking. Because while travel in older age can be beautiful, the truth is, no one talks enough about the hidden risks. The ones that aren't stamped on a boarding pass or covered in glossy brochures. And that's what we need to talk about today. As we grow older, our bodies change in ways that are often invisible until stress hits. And travel, for all its joys, is stress on the mind, the immune system, and the heart. Jet lag doesn't just mean grogginess anymore. It can throw off your sleep for days, affecting everything from blood pressure to mental sharpness. And sleeping in a new place? It might feel like adventure to someone younger, but after 70, unfamiliar beds can mean backaches, sleepless nights, and a chain reaction of fatigue that's hard to shake. And there's more. One of the most overlooked risks is dehydration. On planes, in cars, and walking around unfamiliar cities, many seniors drink less water without even realizing it. But our bodies after 70 don't bounce back the way they used to. A little dehydration can lead to dizziness, confusion, or even a fall. And when you're far from your own doctor, your own medications, and your usual routines, even a minor issue can snowball quickly. I once knew a lovely couple, both in their 70s, who decided to go on a river cruise through Europe. They planned it for months, but on day 2, the husband fainted in the shower due to low blood sugar and dehydration from flying and excitement. He was rushed to a hospital in a city where neither of them spoke the language. The cruise left without them. They spent the rest of the trip trying to coordinate care, insurance, and transportation back home. They were fine in the end, but the emotional toll lasted for months. It shook their confidence and their peace of mind. That's not to say travel must be avoided forever, but it must be planned with a different kind of care. A kind of care rooted not in fear, but in self-respect. You've made it this far in life. You deserve safety, comfort, and clarity. That includes knowing when a trip will enrich your life, and when it might quietly put you at risk. And then there's the emotional side of travel, the part no one tells you about. Sometimes the most painful thing isn't getting lost in a new city. It's returning home and realizing how deeply exhausting it all was, or worse, how lonely you felt surrounded by strangers. That ache of being away from your own chair, your morning tea, your quiet rituals. They're not just habits, they're anchors. And when we rip them out too quickly in our later years, we don't always feel it right away. But our emotional health knows there's so much more we need to say about this, and not because we want to scare anyone, but because you deserve to hear the whole truth. The kind that helps you stay independent, happy, and well, not just for today, but for every season still to come. And speaking of emotional health, let's talk about something that often gets left out of travel checklists, but carries just as much weight as packing the right shoes or remembering your passport: the hidden weight of unfamiliar emotions. Because after 70, the world doesn't just feel physically different, it can feel emotionally louder too. The crowds, the noise, the rushed pace of airports, the unfamiliar meals, the lack of control over your environment. Even when everything technically goes right, you might find yourself feeling unsteady, not on your feet, but in your spirit. I've heard so many stories from older adults who returned home not just tired, but disoriented. They couldn't quite explain it, but something just felt off. It wasn't jet lag, it was an emotional hangover. A sense of being pulled away from their roots, from their comfort zone, from the little routines that give shape and meaning to their days. And here's the truth nobody says out loud. Sometimes when we travel in our later years, we carry with us a hope that the trip will fix something. that a new view will lift the heaviness we've been carrying, that stepping away will make us feel younger, lighter, free again. And it might, for a moment. But when that moment fades, we're often, left with the same ache we packed in our bags. Except now it's mixed with disappointment. That's not failure. It's human. And it's okay to name it. There's also something called emotional overstimulation, which becomes more common with age, even if you've never experienced it before. Things that used to feel invigorating, meeting new people, navigating unfamiliar places, even eating new foods, can now trigger fatigue, anxiety, or even physical symptoms like stomach issues or headaches. And you might not even realize what's happening. You just feel off, irritable, foggy, disconnected. And when you're miles away from your home base, your trusted doctor, or your familiar self-care routine, it's hard to recover quickly. One woman I spoke with recently said it best. She told me, "The trip looked beautiful in my photos, but I didn't feel like myself until 2 weeks after I came home." And that's the risk we don't talk about. Not danger in the dramatic sense, but the quiet unraveling of your inner peace. The kind of unraveling that happens not all at once, but in small threads, until you realize you don't feel centered anymore. This is why emotional preparedness is just as important as physical readiness. If you feel even the slightest hesitation about a trip, if a little voice inside says, "Maybe not now," listen. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's your intuition, reminding you that your well-being matters more than a postcard-perfect photo. Now let's talk about the issue that catches most people off guard: access to care. Because even the healthiest senior can face sudden shifts, an unexpected fall, a medication mix-up, a blood pressure spike from travel stress or altitude. And the truth is, once you're outside your usual circle of care, everything becomes more complicated. You don't know if the local doctor speaks your language. You don't know if your insurance covers the nearest clinic. You don't know where to find the right help in an emergency, or how long it'll take. That uncertainty alone can turn a simple mishap into a spiral of stress. And when you're already managing multiple medications or health conditions, the stakes rise fast. The peace of mind you lose in that moment, it's not easily restored. That's why some seniors say no to travel, not because they can't, but because they've weighed the cost, not just in money or time, but in energy, in risk, in emotional weight. And they've chosen to invest that energy closer to home, in slow mornings, in familiar walks, in time with loved ones, in being present and grounded, not uprooted. Because while travel may seem like the definition of living fully, sometimes choosing to stay planted is the boldest and wisest choice of all. ChatGPT said, and when you choose to stay planted, when you say no to a trip that doesn't feel quite right, you're not closing a door. You're opening space for a different kind of richness, one that's often overlooked in a culture that glorifies movement. But stillness has its power too, especially in our later years when your sense of time deepens and your appreciation for the little things grows tenfold. Think about the quiet joy of a morning on your porch with a warm drink, the sound of birds returning to the same branch each day, the smell of something baking that reminds you of a loved one long gone, the laughter of a neighbor who always tells that same joke but somehow makes you laugh every time. These are not consolation prizes. They're the heartbeat of a well-lived life, and here's the part that matters most. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already climbed the mountains, flown the red-eye flights, danced past midnight at someone else's wedding. You've already earned your stripes. And now, you get to decide what your energy is worth, not in terms of cost or distance, but in how you feel when you wake up and ask, what do I truly want today? If the answer isn't an airport gate or a suitcase packed to the brim, that's okay. Because sometimes, the boldest form of self-love is protecting your peace, and you don't need a plane ticket to feel alive. That being said, if there's still a part of you that loves the idea of travel but dreads the reality of it, there are softer ways to explore. Maybe you take a short day trip with a friend. Maybe you let someone else plan the details. while you focus on comfort and pacing. Or maybe you explore through books, movies, phone calls with old friends in distant places. Because connection and curiosity aren't limited to geography. And if your family is urging you to join them on a big trip, but you're not sure your heart or your health is up for it, you have every right to speak your truth. You can say, "I love you, but I need to stay home this time." That's not a rejection. That's an act of self-respect. And the people who love you most will understand. So let this be your permission slip, not to stay still forever, but to move only when it feels deeply right. To listen more closely to your body. To trust your emotional compass. To stop pushing through when something feels off. There's nothing wrong with loving your life just as it is, with finding beauty in the familiar, with creating joy inside your own walls instead of searching for it elsewhere. Because real vitality at this stage of life doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from doing less, but doing it with deep intention. Fewer steps, but stronger footing. Fewer distractions, but deeper moments. And if you've been wrestling with a decision, whether to go or to stay, know this: choosing your well-being is never a step back. It's a powerful, quiet step forward. One that says, "I know who I am and I know what I need." So here's to living your later years on your terms. Not rushed, not overloaded, not performing for anyone else, but deeply aligned with your truth. And whether that means traveling the world or finding magic in your own backyard, you deserve to feel safe, peaceful, and fully alive. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever said no to a trip and found a different kind of joy because of it? Or maybe you found travel style that works better for you now? Share your wisdom. It might be the encouragement someone else needs today. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We're building a space where wisdom, courage, and care for self are celebrated. Where aging isn't a decline, but a deepening. Here's to a life that feels just right, for you, always.